Today I'm going to give you the exposure about the tender drawings and the tender preparation. There are no slides prepared for this particular presentation, but I'm going to talk to you in by giving you the exposure about a lot of things which you really need to maybe note down or need to understand, like why is the tender prepared, then what is the requirement of the tender preparation. You're doing any project which is not a residential project but it is a commercial premises and you're working for any particular corporate client or a client who needs the tender drawings and the tender preparation to be done. Like for example, like why exactly do you need tender? When the client needs need to take the services like supply of goods and material from different vendors, and he need to do the cost analysis of that particular project. He need to float the tender. Then after floating the tender, the procedure is like he will get the cost analysis done, and after the cost analysis he will award the tender. So what are the different type of tenders? Like tenders are mainly of three types: open tender, invited or selective tender, and serial tender. In open tender, the bidding process is open to all the qualified bidders, and all sealed bids are invited. And then as a designer also, you are part of the scrutiny of comparing the bids to guide the client or to educate the client where the cost is cost proposed by particular vendor is, or the particular contractor is more, and why why it is more than the average cost. And if a particular contractor is quoting very low, then you need to guide that particular client by saying that the contractor is not paying attention to all the material cost and the required cost of that particular item, and he's quoting very low. So that is your role. Now, in case of invited tender, the client is aware like who all are the contractor who are best in that particular work. He gives the invitation to only the selected contractors, and the bids are invited only from the selected contractors. In case of serial tender, for example, in case of a particular work like any bank interiors work or something like that, then sometimes you happen to get to work on a serial tender where a lot of items, like you quote for the contractor quotes for a tender for wooden paneling or only for particular flooring, then the items are going to get repeated in different projects. So you quote for particular item and not for particular project. So that is a kind of serial tender you have. Now, tender procedures, like when a contractor gets a tender, the client floats the tender. He does the cost analysis, where as a designer you play a part while doing the cost analysis of the tender by comparing two three cost estimate with the realistic cost, which you are already aware about it, and then the tender is awarded. Like for example, like while the preparing of a tender, you should be aware if the material is supplied by the client or it is a labor tender. Sometimes the client floats only the labor tender as well. The client asks the contractor to submit the breakage of the material and the labor in such cases. Now it is for you that how the know-how for tender preparation is: first the construction process and then the knowledge of the material. The construction process I will explain you, and the knowledge of the material also I will explain you in the later stage. But first, the division of work, like how is the tender divided into different parts. The tender is divided into all such parts which are listed on the slide right now based on the construction process. Like for example, the civil work happens the very first. That is the first activity on the site. So the first part is civil work. Then the second is flooring and tiling work. The third is false ceiling work, then the door and windows, then the MS or the SS railing work, then the carpentry work, and then the miscellaneous work, which are sometimes, ready to buy items also can be listed in miscellaneous work. Like after this, whatever I'm going to talk to you, you might have to note it down on yourself, because I have not prepared any slides for that, because the process of the construction of construction process and all needs to be discussed with you and not to be listed on any particular slide. So what I would say that I will stop sharing the screen now, and you can just listen to me. See, while preparation of a tender, you should be aware about the construction process of the civil work. Like first, you should be aware, like if the site is already filled with any brickwork or any furniture, then you need to first clean the site by demolishing it. So your tender should include the item for demolition work of particular space. After demolition is the cleaning of the site, and then comes the waterproofing. The first activity comes as the waterproofing. So you should be aware, like if the waterproofing is to be done in on particular site, is a brick bed coba waterproofing or a membrane waterproofing. So whatever the words I'm going to right now talk to you, maybe you can note down those words, the activities which are involved in the complete construction process, then improvise on that by gaining the knowledge about that particular process on your own, by searching maybe on web or maybe reading different books, so that you should be aware about this process. Unless and until you are aware about the complete construction process, you will not be able to prepare the tender for any particular work. When you will join in an office, you might not be able to given a complete work of preparation of tender, but you might be asked to fill a tender. Like for that, you should be aware about the design process and the construction process, so that you will fill in the quantity of that particular item in that particular BOQ specification, instead of that particular BOQ specification. Like after the waterproofing comes the construction, like masonry construction work. Now for masonry construction, as discussed to you in the last presentation, you should be aware like what kind of machineries are going to get masonry material the contractor is going to get utilized. You should have the list of that particular item in the with complete specification in your tender. Then comes the RCC lintel construction along with the masonry work. Plastering of the masonry work, if it is an internal plaster, it has to be 12 mm thick plaster. If it is external plaster, it has to be minimum 18 to 20 mm plaster. Even though you are doing a tiling inside a washroom area where the tiles are going to get cladded, or any wall is going to get cladded with the as a final finishing material, then you need to provide a plastered wall to the contractor. Then comes the floor preparation. If the floor preparation or the raw slab needs the PCC or it needs filling to be done, then that particular item needs to be taken care of in the tender itself. Then the types of flooring used, like for example, if the project demands ceramic tiles in certain places, it demands it has vitrified tiles in certain places, it has marble flooring or wooden flooring in certain places, then your tender should list the flooring items in such a way that the finishing happens in some sequence. Like for example, the wooden flooring, if the wooden flooring has the base of any ceramic flooring tiles, like the wooden flooring needs to have a base below that. So it can be sometimes IPS, that is granulate concrete flooring, or it can be a basic, very economical grade ceramic tile flooring also. So either one of the thing you need to list in your tender itself. Now, in case of a residence, you really don't need to prepare a tender, but you need to list down all the items together for a client to know like what all materials are going to get used, and how the contractor is going to finish his particular residence. Even though, like for example, if you are proposing a wooden flooring for any bedroom, you need to guide the client that the wooden flooring base is going to be a basic ceramic tile, so that even though some seepage happens from the floor, from the RCC slab below, then you should not, you should be able to handle that by not really spoiling the wooden flooring in the later stages. So you need to guide the person accordingly. But the tender preparation is generally done for the commercial premises. But then in residential premises also, you need to list down the things, list down all the items. Then then the contractor and the client also are aware about what materials they are going to procure. Like for example, in residences, many a times it happens that the material is directly bought by client. He comes along with you for particular material buying, and he buys that material on his own, and the contractor works on only as a labor part. He pays only as a labor part to the contractor. So the difference of the labor and material is to be listed in terms of a BOQ when you work on a residential client project. Then if any ramp flooring is going to be part of your project, then you should be aware like what kind of flooring you are going to use for this particular ramp. Like for example, generally the 100 mm by 100 mm wide strip of granite are used. Sometimes the granite is flame finished, then you should mention that in a particular BOQ or the BOQ item that the granite is finished with flame finish, so that the cost of granite over and above that, the finishing cost of the granite is loaded on that particular item of the costing of that particular item. Then as explained you last time, the transition profile to be proposed in the wherever the change of flooring is going to happen. Then the expansion joint, accent tiles. For example, if you're using some design tiles in the flooring, or even if you're using some design tiles in the wall cladding, you need to list down those tiles. Glass tiles, maybe it might be a printed tile, it may be some design tiles or marble flooring which involves laser cutting or water jet cutting. That all these terms needs to be listed while writing a tender, because see, the tender is nothing but the language which the contractor is aware. When he will read particular item in a tender, he is aware like what all things he needs to do, and he needs to load it over and above the basic cost of the material or the labor cost. Over and above means, like for example, if a plain flooring of a marble cost around 700 per square feet, and if a design flooring which involves laser cutting, then the cost of the flooring has to be loaded with the laser cutting cost of that particular marble and the wastage of marble. Like for example, the design which is going to get laser cut in particular marble slab, the rest of the part of the slab is going to go west. So even though the cost of the the cost of the flooring is loaded only for a 10 feet by 10 feet of bedroom, then you see the flooring size of 100 square feet only. Visually you can see only 100 square feet, but the material which is used is more than that because of the design element involved, because of the laser cutting involved, and the wastage of the material involved. So even though a normal flooring is costing 700 per square feet, this particular flooring of 10 feet by 10 feet space with a design element in it may cost roughly around 1000 square feet, 1000 rupees per square feet. So all these criteria has to be taken care by a contractor while loading on it, while deciding about the cost of a particular item. So for that, you should write all that specification in your tender. Unless and until you will write that, nothing is going to get discussed with the contractor every now and then. You cannot sit and explain him each and every item, or you cannot explain him each and every specification. Like for example, sometimes you have not mentioned that particular design needs to be leather cut. Then the contractor will do it hand cut, and the final finish will not be as per your standard, the standard which you want to maintain for. And finally, the client will blame on you that the design is not has come up as per the concept, and just because you fail to write it in the tender that the design needs to be laser cut, and the contractor is not loaded the cost of the laser cutting over and above that, and he has not taken care of the wastage of the material onto that. So the blame comes here onto a design to the designer, where he has missed writing it in the tender. In terms of counter construction, like in civil work, what all things are involved is like as explained you, expansion joint, then accent tiles on flooring and wall tiles also. Then the counter construction also comes under the civil work. Any counter construction which involves brickwork for supports. Like for example, the brickwork, any counter which is almost say around 4 to 5 meters long, or maybe a L-shaped counter, a pantry counter, or any concession counter or wash basin counter. It sometimes has a construction of brickwork below that. Then the brickwork also needs to be cladded with tiles, or it has to be finished with some other material. Then it needs to be mentioned in that, because otherwise if you will fail to mention that, the counter cost, the contractor generally gives the counter cost as only the for supplying and construction of the counter only, and not for finishing of the tiles below the counter. Then he will ask for an extra charge for that to the client. Then the civil partition wall construction, for example, if any civil partition, the marble partition is to be constructed for any urinal partitions or any other partition, then the marble needs to be polished from both the sides. Like you get pre-polished marbles from both the sides, which are polished from both the sides. This polishing does not happen on site. You need to buy the material in such a way that if the partition is visible from both the sides, generally the marble is finished or polished only from one side. The material which you buy from the market is only finished from one side. But in terms of using a urinal partition or any other partition when it is exposed from both the sides, you need to write that particular material is to be polished from both the sides, and also the edges needs to be polished. That can be polished on site, or it can be pre-polished also. Then the cladding of tiles. Sometimes the cladding of tiles, if it happens more than 3 feet and above, if any space which is more than not 3 feet, 3 meter and above, and if you have shown a marble cladding onto that, you should be aware that the marble cladding cannot be done for a 6 meter wall only with a cement cladding or with a base coat of cement cladding, but you need to do a dry cladding for that. So your the item of BOQ should explain the contractor that the particular wall needs to be cladded with marble with dry cladding and not with the cement cladding. Like explained you earlier, you should be aware about the material knowledge also. Like for example, while preparation of the BOQ, you write that this particular tile is going to get used. You have shown a flooring tile of suppose 1 meter by 1 meter in your flooring plan. The contractor is studying the BOQ and your flooring plan together. So in the flooring plan, you have written only 1 meter by 1 meter Kajaria make this particular tile. Okay. But the contractor is not aware about the basic rate of the tile. So you need to write the basic rate of that particular tile in that. The size of the tile, the thickness of the tile has to be well written in the tender itself, because all these specifications you generally don't write on the tender drawing, but you write it as a part of tender itself, as a part of BOQ. BOQ is billing of quantities, and where the billing of quantities is written, there you are also writing all the specifications, and you are writing the installation process also, like what all things are involved in while installation of that particular item. Now when you say a basic rate, now for your own knowledge, you should at least make 3-4 calls to different vendors to know what is the basic rate of a tile. Like for example, if you will call a vendor to know about the basic rate of a tile, he will say that a 2 feet by 2 feet tile, which has the one box of 2 feet by 2 feet tiles, which has 4 tiles in a box. So the cost of the box, he will say. The cost of the box sometimes he say, or he will explain you the cost of the tile in terms of square feet. But you are preparing the tender in square meters. So you should be aware about the cost of the tile in square feet, which you need to coordinate with the vendor while getting the material from the market. But while preparing of the tender, you should know the conversion of the square feet to square meter. So, for example, of 2 feet by 2 feet of particular one box of 4 tiles has 16 square feet of tiles. So one box cost of 100 rupees per square feet is 1,600. Then if you want to cover up the material cost in terms of square meters, you need to divide it by 10.764 so that you are aware that you are going to cover only 1.5 square meter in that. So the basic cost of the material is 1076 when you write the basic cost in the tender per square meter, the 1076 rupees per square meter. So all these conversions you should be aware about, because when you will go and buy a marble, like for example, a composite marble is available in 8 feet by 4 feet size. When you will say 8 feet by 4 feet, he will never say 1.2 by 2.4. You cannot ask a vendor to communicate with you in terms of metric. He never communicates with you in metric. Generally, all the vendors communicate with you in feet and inches. So if you will ask particular slab size, he will say 2 feet by 4 feet size is the slab available. So you are aware that 32 square feet of slab is going to cost you so roughly around 10,000. Then what is the per square feet cost? And then what is the per square meter cost, which you need to mention in your BOQ. As a designer, you are supposed to mention only the basic cost, but when the contractor will quote on for particular project, what all criteria he need to think about. he need to think about the transport of that particular material from the shop to the site, the taxes involved, then the octroi involved, and the labor cost of the transportation. Transportation involves the labor and the transportation vehicle cost also. So all these things will get loaded onto that. So even though the cost of the material is 100 rupees a square feet or 1000 rupees a square meter, then too the contractor is going to get it on site for 1200. And for a flooring of around 10 feet by 10 feet, you are going to get cost of 120 rupees a square feet and not 100 rupees a square feet. Then while calculating the material, he need to think about the breakage of the material as well, the wastage of the material as well. Like for example, the room is never exactly 10 feet by 10 feet, but it is 9 feet 4 inches by 9 feet 6 inches. So that 4 inches tile, the remaining tile goes in wastage. So that is the part of wastage which the contractor will calculate and will tell you. Like even though the size is rough of the room is roughly around 100 square feet, you are going to need the material which is plus 10%, or maybe sometimes if the breakage is more, plus 15% than that. In the residence, he need to take out the skirting also out of that material. So he need to think about the skirting material while ordering the flooring material. You need to think about what height of the skirting you are going to use. Like for example, if you are going to use a 100 mm height or a 4 inches height, 4 inches of skirting material, then he will have to think about like how much square feet of material is counted for skirting. So all these criteria are very much important when you discuss with a contractor and when you actually execute a particular design. Now I was explaining you the size of the tile, then the basic rate of the tile, then the availability of the tile. Like for example, you sometimes visit the website and you select particular tile, but sometimes the tiles are outdated. Those are seen on the website, those are seen on the pamphlets and the brochures, but the availability of the site is tile is not there. So you need to check the availability by calling the vendor. You should be aware about the availability of that particular material for particular place also. Like for example, if you are sitting here in Mumbai and if you're designing something there in Bangalore, then you should be aware like if the tile which is shown by a vendor or by particular Kajaria website, if you're seeing particular tile which is seen on website, but if it is not available in some town, some other town, then it is of no use. So the availability check also is your own role. Then while the selection of marble, if the composite marble is there, you have different make for that, and you can directly visit the showroom and do the selection of the marble. Like different makes are classic marble, Akash marble or Asian marble. You can visit their showrooms and choose the particular marble which you have proposed for your design. But when the natural marble is been proposed, like for example, as explained you, if you're sitting in Mumbai and if you're using that particular marble in Bangalore, then you need to visit the vendor of the natural marble available in the market in Bangalore itself, because the natural marble cannot be transported from Mumbai to that particular place. And natural marbles are available in slabs which are not cut to size but which are naturally available. So if you will go and visit any particular natural marble vendor here in Mumbai also, you will come to know that the size of the marble is never in 8 feet by 4 feet. it comes in, maybe 3 meter by 6 meter, and the two edges are not 90 degrees, and the other edges are also naturally taken out of quarry when they take the marble to their particular shop. It is available in natural form. It is never available in right angle or particular size form. Now, for example, if I'm proposing a flooring for particular lobby, which involves roughly around 500 square feet area, then the material which is necessary to fit in will I will have to visit particular marble vendor and see if the same lot is available or not. Like for example, if I need to finish 500 square feet of area, I need to maybe buy 650 or 600 square feet of area from him, and in which cut sizes I need. For example, if I need 1 meter by 1.2 meter or pointed by 1.2 meter, then I need to discuss with him like what cut sizes he will be able to give me, like by giving lesser and lesser wastage. So that communication happens in between you as a designer and as a vendor, the supplier of the particular marble. As the marble is a natural material, this is a natural material which we are proposing. So you are dependent on the vendor and his calculation and the natural material size available there in the market. So you need to be a little bit flexible with there. Even though on the tender drawing you have shown pointed by 1 meter size, you might get 1 meter by 1 meter size also available in market. So you might guide the client that the material is available in my 1 meter by 1 meter by giving a very less wastage. So might as well use that. Or sometimes you have proposed 1.2 by 1.8 meter size, but the material is available in the form of 1.1 meter by 1.6 meter, then you might have to be flexible to use the material in that shape, just because it's a natural material. Same is the case in case of granite. You cannot specify particular granite, or you cannot show the design of particular granite in terms of any 2D or 3D presentation. It is just a color tone which you display. When you show the presentation to the client, it is just a color tone. But you need to guide the client that whenever you will visit particular vendor or particular material shop for buying of the granite, the color tone of the granite will be decided there itself, because that is going to be a naturally available material. And it also depends upon the cost of the material, because the black granite itself has varying tones. The jet black granite or the telephone granite and a telephone black granite has different material cost. For example, if your client will ask you like what is the basic cost of the granite, you cannot suddenly say like it is 110 rupees per square feet. The granite you are going to use for his particular countertop or a kitchen countertop might cost him 300 rupees per square feet as well, because the granite is going to get used. It depends completely upon the material cost and whether he will like it aesthetically, whether you will like it as per your theme or not. Then it completely depends upon that. So the basic cost of the granite, you can guide him that it ranges from 110 to 300 or 350. Then the edge protection, like when you do the cladding of any material on the wall, the way you have utilized expansion joint in the flooring, there are some edge protection angles needed to be used in terms of cladding also. In commercial premises, sometimes if the cladding is done, the glass cladding or the tile cladding is done in such a way that the corners are very sharp. Even though you use a vitrified tile, the corners are very sharp. So because of that, you might have to use edge protection angle for that particular cladding, the corner cladding. and these edge protection angles should not give a look of an industrial premises. So you should have a designer edge protection for that. The way you have inlay in flooring, the same way you have inlay in wall cladding also. So you should be aware about different T profile, L profile, C profile, which are available in different finishes like stainless steel finish, then the rose gold finish, or brush steel finish, aluminum finish, which are the materials which you can use for inlay in a wall, for a wall cladding. Then as explained to you, the inlay proposed in the flooring has to be in such a way that after wear and tear of the inlay also, it does not get spoiled. Then while the installation of doors and windows, then the architraves, the jam lining, which is again going to be a natural material, maybe a marble or granite. So you should be aware about the size of the marble available and the material which you will be using for that particular jam lining. So while buying of the material also, you need to take care that it should be without any joint. For example, if the size of the door is 7 feet or 7.5 feet or 8 feet, that is 2.4 meters height, then you should be aware that the marble should be without any joint, because in a architrave or in a door jam lining, if you will propose any joint in between, it will not look good. So that should be well communicated through your tender or to the contractor. So these are the materials like which you generally need to take care about the civil work. I will finish the civil work today. That is all for today, because there are a lot of things involved in fall ceiling work, carpentry work. I think these points, if you have noted, you can study on your own, and in the next webinar, you can come across, you can ask me any questions based on your, your basic homework. You can ask me any questions.